The alarm bells rang through Outpost Meridian like angry metal birds. Commander Vextar lifted his scaled head from the datapad he had been reading and looked at the flashing red lights with tired eyes. Another false alarm, he thought. The deep space monitoring station had been quiet for months, watching empty space at the edge of Zephyrian territory. "Sir, we have something strange on the sensors," called out Sensor Officer Kilenex from across the control room. Her voice carried a note of worry that made Vextar pay attention. Kilenex had been working the sensors for 10 years. She did not. "Get worried about space rocks or broken satellites?" Vextar walked over to her station, his boots making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. The station was old, built 50 years ago, when the Empire first claimed this region of space. Everything here was functional but worn, like an old coat that still kept you warm but looked tired. "What do you see?" he asked, looking at the glowing display screen. Numbers and symbols moved across it in patterns that meant nothing to most people, but Vextar had learned to read them like words in a book. "Unknown contact, bearing 27 Mark IV. Distance approximately 3 light hours in closing," Kilenex said, pointing at a small dot on the screen. "At first I thought it was debris from the asteroid field in Sector 9, but look at this." She pressed a button and the display changed. Now it showed the path the object had taken over the last 6 hours. Instead of the straight line or gentle curve that space rocks usually made, this path had several sharp turns and changes in speed. "It is under power," Vextar said quietly. "What does the computer say it is?" "That is the problem, sir. The computer cannot identify it. The energy signature does not match anything in our database. The size seems wrong, too. It reads as much smaller than our smallest scout ship, but the power output suggests something much larger." Vextar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years of service, unknown contacts usually meant trouble. Pirates sometimes used modified ships to avoid detection, but they rarely came this close to a military outpost. Enemy scouts from rival empires were always a possibility, but they usually tried to stay hidden. "Send a message to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have an unidentified vessel approaching our border. Request instructions." While Kilenex sent the message, Vextar studied the readings more carefully. The ship, if it was a ship, moved in a way he had never seen before. It did not follow the standard flight patterns that most civilized species used. Those patterns had been developed over thousands of years to be efficient and safe. This vessel seemed to ignore all of that knowledge. 3 hours later, the reply came from Fleet Command. Vextar read the message twice, then called his senior staff to the briefing room. The small room had a round table and chairs for 6 people. Maps of local space covered the walls, showing patrol routes and defensive positions. "I have received new orders," Vextar told his officers. "We are to track this unknown vessel but take no action unless it enters our territory. Fleet Command is sending additional ships to our position." "Sir," said his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mordash, "what kind of additional ships?" Vextar looked at the message again. A full battle squadron. 6 heavy destroyers and a command cruiser. The room went quiet. A battle squadron was serious firepower, enough to destroy a small fleet or defend an entire star system. The fact that Fleet Command was sending such force to deal with one small unknown ship told Vextar that his superiors knew something he did not. "Is there something special about this contact?" asked Chief Engineer Yordle. "The message does not say," Vextar replied. "But it does include a new classification code. Priority Alpha 7. I have never seen that code before." Lieutenant Mordash looked worried. "Sir, Alpha 7 is a restricted classification. It means potential encounter with hostile unknown species. The kind of species that might be dangerous to the Empire." Far away from the Zephyrian outpost, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Dakota and watched the stars. The human ship moved through space at a steady pace, its fusion engines pushing it toward a yellow star system that looked promising for scientific study. "Captain," said Communications Officer Lisa Park, "I am picking up some strange signals." "From the direction we are heading." They look artificial, but I cannot decode them, Jake nodded. Any chance they are natural phenomena? Sometimes pulsars or other stellar objects can create signals that look artificial. I do not think so, sir. The patterns are too regular and they seem to be coming from multiple sources in the same general area. Chief Science Officer Dr. Peter Coleman looked up from his instruments. Captain, if those are artificial signals, it means we have found evidence of intelligent life. This could be the discovery we have been hoping for. Jake had been commanding the Dakota for 2 years, ever since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel. The ship was part of the Earth Exploration Fleet, designed to map new star systems and search for signs of life. So far they had found many interesting planets and phenomena, but no clear evidence of other intelligent species. What is our current position? Jake asked. Navigator Chris Hunter checked his instruments. We are approximately 4 light-years from Earth in what our charts call the frontier region. No previous human expeditions have been this far in this direction. Any sign that this space is claimed by someone else? Nothing obvious, sir. No warning beacons, no patrol ships, no territorial markers that we can recognize. Jake made his decision. Continue on course? If there are other intelligent beings out here, we need to know about it. Lisa, keep monitoring those signals. Peter, start preparing the first contact protocols just in case. The UES Dakota continued toward the Zephyrian border, its crew excited about the possibility of meeting other intelligent life. None of them knew that their approach was causing panic in one of the galaxy's most powerful empires, or that a battle squadron was already moving to intercept them docked in the depths of space. 2 civilizations were about to meet for the first time, and neither one understood what the other was capable of. High Admiral Kethmos stood at the center of the Imperial War Room on Nexus Prime, staring at the massive holographic display that showed the Zephyrian Empire's territory. Red dots marked the positions of fleet units, while green lines showed trade routes and communication networks. Everything looked normal except for one small, flashing yellow dot near the outer rim. That single dot represented the unknown ship approaching Outpost Meridian, and it had turned Kethmos' quiet morning into a crisis. He was a tall Zephyrian, with dark purple skin and 4 arms, each ending in hands with 6 fingers. His species had ruled the Empire for over 1,000 years, and he had commanded fleets for most of his adult life. But today, he felt uncertain in a way that he did not like. Tell me again what we know about this contact, he said to Intelligence Director Nixvar, who stood nearby with a datapad in her clawed hands. Very little, sir, Nixvar replied. Her species, the Krillax, were known for their careful attention to detail and excellent memory. The ship is small but shows advanced technology. It moves in patterns we do not recognize. Most importantly, our computer analysis suggests it might be of human origin. The room went quiet. Around the circular table sat the 12 senior officers who made up the Imperial War Council, each representing a different species within the Empire. The mention of humans made them all uncomfortable. Defense Minister Kalthez, a massive bear-like creature with thick gray fur, slammed one of his heavy paws on the table. If it is a human ship, we should destroy it immediately. We cannot allow them to scout our territory. That would be unwise, said Science Advisor Marieth, her insect-like head tilting as she spoke. We know very little about human capabilities. Attacking them without understanding their strength could bring disaster upon us. High Admiral Kethmos had read all the intelligence reports about humans. The information was limited and often contradictory, but one thing was clear. Humans were dangerous in ways that no one fully understood. Other galactic powers had learned this the hard way. Remind everyone what happened to the hegemony of Krix? Kethmos said. Nix single quotes buttons on her datapad, and the holographic display changed to show a battle recording. It was grainy and poor quality, taken from a surviving Krix observation post. The recording showed a massive Krix battle fleet, over 200 ships arranged in perfect formation. They were approaching what looked like a small human destroyer, alone in empty space. The Krix commander demanded surrender, Nixvar explained as they watched. The human ship refused. The Krix fleet opened fire with everything they had. On the display, hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human ship. The observers around the table expected to see the small vessel destroyed instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship seemed to flicker and dance between the incoming fire, avoiding destruction by margins so small they looked like luck. Then it began to fire back. What happened next changed everything the Krix thought they knew about warfare. Nixvar continued. The human weapons were not more powerful than Krix weapons, but they used them differently. They targeted specific systems instead of trying to destroy entire ships. Within 30 minutes, the entire Krix fleet was disabled. Not destroyed, just unable to fight or retreat. Trade Minister Zolvan, a thin reptilian being, leaned forward. What did the humans do then? Did they demand surrender? Ask for tribute? Nothing, Nixvar said. They sent a message saying they hoped the Krix had learned something useful, then left. The Krix fleet was found 3 days later by their own rescue ships, completely helpless but unharmed. The silence in the room was heavy. Every officer present understood what this meant. The humans could have destroyed the entire Krix fleet but chose not to. This suggested either great mercy or great confidence, and both possibilities were frightening. What about the Merchant Confederation of Yildar? Asked Economic Advisor Pelfin. Nixvar changed the display again. The Yildar tried a different approach. They attempted to control human expansion through economic pressure. They organized a complete trade embargo, cutting off all supplies and market access to human colonies. That should have worked, said Trade Minister Zolvan. No species can survive without trade connections. The humans ignored the embargo completely, Nixvar explained. Instead of trying to break it or negotiate, they simply built their own trade networks. In less than 2 years, they had created supply lines and manufacturing centers that were more efficient than what the Yildar Confederation had built over centuries. The display showed shipping routes and trade statistics. The human trade network grew like a living thing, spreading across space with a speed that seemed impossible. Worse, other species began abandoning the Yildar system to join the human networks, which offered better prices and faster delivery. The Confederation tried to compete, but they could not match human efficiency, Nixvar said. Within 5 years, the Yildar economic power had collapsed. They are now a minor regional government instead of a galactic power. High Admiral Kethmos looked around the table at his advisors. Each face showed the same worry he felt. The Empire had spent centuries building its power through military might and careful diplomacy. The idea that humans might simply ignore both of these approaches was deeply disturbing. Sir, said Communications Minister Harville, we have another message from Outpost Meridian. The unknown ship has continued its approach and is now only 2 hours from our border. Defense Minister Kalfez stood up, his massive frame towering. Over the table, we must act now. Deploy the Third Fleet to intercept. Show them that the Zephyrian Empire is not as weak as the Krix or the Yildar. No, said Science Advisor Marieth firmly. That is exactly the kind of thinking that led to their defeats. We need to understand what the humans want before we do anything aggressive. What they want is obvious, Kalthez growled. They are scouting our defenses, preparing for invasion. High Admiral Kethmos raised one of his 4 hands for silence. We will take a middle approach. Send Admiral Zexkal's squadron to observe and make contact if necessary. But they are not to attack unless the human ship enters our territory and shows hostile intent. He turned to Nixvar. Send word to all border outposts. If there is one human ship here, there may be others. I want to know about any unusual contacts immediately. As the meeting ended and the officers left to carry out their orders, High Admiral Kethmos remained staring at the display. The yellow dot representing the human ship continued its steady approach toward Zephyrian space. Soon he would learn whether the Empire's fears about humanity were justified, or whether they were about to make the same mistakes that had cost other powers their strength. Either way, he knew that after today the galaxy would be a different place. Admiral Zexkall paced back and forth on the bridge of his flagship, the ZES Thunderstrike. He was a veteran of 40 years of military service, with scars from 3 different wars marking his blue-scaled hide. His 4 eyes could see in multiple light spectrums, and right now they were all focused on the tactical display showing the approaching human vessel. "Sir, the patrol squadron is in position," reported Captain Veltra from her destroyer, the ZES Swift Justice. Her voice came through the communication system with the slight static that always accompanied long-range transmissions. "All ships are maintaining formation at the coordinates you specified." Zexkall had positioned his 6 destroyers in a loose semicircle, 2 light hours away from the border. It was close enough to respond quickly if the human ship proved hostile, but far enough away to avoid appearing aggressive. At least he hoped it would not appear aggressive. With humans, no one could be certain what they would consider threatening. "Captain Veltra, remind all ship commanders that they are to observe only. No weapons charging, no targeting locks, no aggressive maneuvers. We are here to watch and learn." "Understood, sir." All ships acknowledge. Zexkall looked at the human ship's projected course on his display. If it continued on its current path, it would cross into Zephyrian territory in less than 3 hours. The strange thing was that it showed no sign of slowing down or changing direction. Most ships, when approaching the border of a major power, would at least hesitate or send some kind of diplomatic message. "Sensor Officer Krentel, what can you tell me about the human vessel?" Zexkall asked. The young Zephyrian at the sensor station looked nervous. This was probably his first encounter with anything more dangerous than pirates or smugglers. "Sir, the readings are very strange. The ship appears to be much smaller than our destroyers, perhaps only 1/4 the size. But the energy signatures suggest sophisticated technology." "What kind of weapons do you detect?" "That is the confusing part, sir. I cannot identify any obvious weapon systems. No particle beam arrays, no missile tubes, no plasma cannons. Either they have weapons we cannot recognize, or this is not a warship." This information troubled Zexkall more than if the sensors had detected massive weapons. A heavily armed ship he could understand. But what was the purpose of an unarmed vessel approaching military territory? It made no sense according to standard military doctrine. "Sir," called Communications Officer Dexwin from her station, "I am detecting transmissions from the human ship. They appear to be scanning our patrol formation." Zexkall felt his blood turn cold. "Are they targeting us?" "I do not think so, sir. The scans seem more like scientific observations than military targeting. They are collecting data about our ship designs and energy systems, but not in a way that suggests preparation for attack." On the bridge of the UES Dakota, Captain Jake Morrison studied the sensor readings with growing curiosity. The alien ships that had appeared seemed to be maintaining a respectful distance, making no threatening moves. This was exactly the kind of first contact situation that human protocols had been designed for. "Lisa, any luck with communications?" he asked. Communications Officer Lisa Park shook her head. "I am trying multiple frequencies and language patterns, but no response so far." "They are definitely artificial intelligences operating those ships, though? The coordination is too precise for random behavior." Chief Science Officer Dr. Peter Coleman was practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, this is incredible. I am detecting at least 6 different ship designs, each using slightly different energy systems. This suggests a multi-species alliance or empire. The technological sophistication is remarkable." "Peter, remember that we are potentially dealing with a military force here," Jake warned. "Keep the scientific enthusiasm under control until we know their intentions." "Of course, sir. But the opportunity to learn about alien technology is extraordinary. Look at these energy patterns. They are using some kind of exotic matter reactions that our theories predicted, but we have never been able to create." First Officer Ryan Bell moved closer to the captain. "Sir, should we consider changing course?" "We are clearly in someone's territory, and they have sent what looks like a patrol squadron to intercept us." Jake considered this carefully. The human exploration protocols were clear about respecting the territorial claims of other species, but they were also clear about the importance of making peaceful contact when possible. Not yet. If they wanted us to leave, they would have sent some kind of warning message. The fact that they are just watching suggests they might be as curious about us as we are about them. Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her console. Captain, I am detecting some unusual energy fluctuations from our fusion drive. Nothing dangerous, but the exotic particles in this region of space seem to be interacting with our engines in unexpected ways. Is there any chance this could be interpreted as a weapons charge or hostile action? I do not think so, sir. The fluctuations are very minor, and they seem to be making our engines more efficient rather than more powerful. Back on the Thunderstrike. Admiral Zexkal was receiving similar reports about the human ship's energy systems. What his sensors detected made him deeply uncomfortable. The human vessel was not just ignoring his patrol squadron. It seemed to be studying them while continuing on its original course. Sir, reported Sensor Officer Krentel, the human ship has just conducted detailed scans of all our vessels. They now have complete information about our shield frequencies, engine signatures, and hull compositions. How is that possible? Our ships have military-grade sensor scramblers. The human scanning technology appears to operate on principles. We do not understand, sir. Our countermeasures had no effect. Captain Veltra's voice came through the communication system with obvious tension. Admiral, my tactical officer reports that the human ship could now target all our critical systems with perfect accuracy. If this is intelligence gathering for a future attack, they have everything they need. Zexkal made a decision that would have consequences for both species. All ships begin broadcasting standard diplomatic greeting protocols on all frequencies. If they are here for peaceful reasons, they should respond. If they do not respond, we will have to assume hostile intent. The message went out across space toward the UES Dakota, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an empire that had learned to be terrified of human unpredictability. On the human ship, Lisa Park suddenly straightened at her communications console. Captain, I am receiving what appears to be a structured message from the alien ships. The computer is trying to decode it now, but it looks like they might be attempting to establish communication. Jake Morrison felt his heart rate increase. After years of searching empty space, humanity was finally about to make contact with another intelligent species. He had no way of knowing that on the alien ships, military officers were preparing for what they believed might be the Empire's greatest crisis in centuries. Open a channel, Jake ordered. Let us see if we can talk to them. The first contact between humans and the Zephyrian Empire began with a sound like broken glass mixed with static. Captain Jake Morrison winced as the noise came through the speakers on the Dakota's bridge. The Universal Translator, humanity's most advanced language processing system, struggled to make sense of the alien communication. Lisa, can you clean that up? Jake asked, rubbing his ears. Communications Officer Lisa Park worked frantically at her console, adjusting frequencies and filtering out interference. I think they are trying to use multiple communication methods at once, sir. Radio waves, subspace signals, even some kind of quantum entanglement messaging. Our translator is having trouble because it does not know which signal to focus on. On the bridge of the ZES Swift Justice, Captain Veltra was having similar problems. The human response sounded like a mixture of musical tones and mathematical equations, completely unlike any language in the Empire's database. Her communications officer, a six-armed creature named Pixtel, looked frustrated as he tried various decoding methods. Captain, I believe they are attempting to establish a mathematical baseline for communication, Pixtel reported. They are sending basic mathematical concepts, numbers, geometric shapes, physical constants. This is a standard first contact protocol, but their method is very different from ours. Veltra felt a mixture of relief and concern. Relief because mathematical communication suggested peaceful intentions. Concern because the human approach was so efficient and sophisticated that it made her wonder what other capabilities they might be hiding. After 20 minutes of careful work, both sides managed to establish basic communication. The conversation that followed would be remembered by historians as one of the most important misunderstandings in galactic history. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth exploration ship Dakota," came the translated voice through the Zephyrian. "Speakers, we are conducting scientific surveys in this region of space. We did not know this area was inhabited. Please accept our apologies if we have violated your territory." Captain Veltra exchanged glances with her bridge crew. The human message sounded reasonable, but something about it felt wrong. No military commander would reveal their ship's name and mission so easily to unknown aliens. Either this human was incredibly naive, or it was some kind of psychological warfare technique. "This is Captain Veltra of the Zephyrian Empire Defense Force," she replied carefully. "You have approached our border without authorization. State your true purpose in this region." "We are mapping stellar phenomena and searching for signs of intelligent life," Jake responded immediately. "We come from a planet called Earth, approximately 4 light-years from here. This is our first contact with another spacefaring civilization. We are very excited to meet you." The casual way the human revealed sensitive information made Veltra's skin crawl. Ship names, home planet locations, military capabilities, mission objectives. In Zephyrian military culture, such information was closely guarded and revealed only under extreme circumstances. "Captain Morrison," Veltra said, "are you authorized to conduct diplomatic negotiations on behalf of your species?" "I have basic first contact authority," Jake replied. "But I should mention that we are not alone out here. Earth has sent 12 exploration ships to survey different regions of local space. The Dakota is part of the Frontier Survey mission, designed to make peaceful contact with any intelligent species we encounter." On the Thunderstrike, Admiral Zexkal nearly fell out of his command chair when he heard this transmission. 12 human ships scattered across a region of space larger than some entire star systems? What had seemed like a single scouting mission now looked like a massive intelligence-gathering operation. "Communications, send an emergency message to Fleet Command immediately," Zexkal ordered. "Tell them we have confirmed the presence of multiple human vessels conducting systematic reconnaissance of our territory. Request immediate reinforcement." Meanwhile, on the Dakota, Dr. Peter Coleman was practically vibrating with scientific enthusiasm. "Captain, they mentioned the Zephyrian Empire. That suggests a multi-species political organization, possibly covering dozens of star systems. The sociological implications are fascinating." "Peter, focus on the immediate situation," Jake warned. But he was curious too. "Captain Veltra, could you tell us more about your empire? We are very interested in learning about other civilizations." The direct question caught Veltra off guard. In her experience, enemy scouts tried to gather intelligence through subtle questioning and careful observation. They did not simply ask for detailed information about military organization and territorial extent. "Why do you want to know about our military structure?" she asked suspiciously. "Oh, we are not interested in military matters," Jake replied quickly. "We are scientists and explorers. We want to understand how different species organize their societies, what technologies they have developed, how they approach problems like interstellar travel and communication." Dr. Coleman here has been studying theoretical models of galactic civilization for years. Dr. Coleman's voice came through the communication system, filled with excitement. "Captain Veltra, we have detected unusual energy signatures from your ships that suggest very advanced power generation systems. Would you be willing to share information about your energy technology? We could exchange data about our fusion drive systems in return." Admiral Zexkal, listening to this exchange, felt his worldview beginning to shift. Enemy spies did not offer to share their own technology in exchange for information. They certainly did not sound genuinely excited about scientific collaboration. But if these humans were really just explorers and scientists, then why had other galactic powers been so thoroughly defeated by them? "Captain Morrison," Admiral Zexkal interrupted, taking over the communication from Captain Veltra. "This is..." Admiral Zexkal commander of this patrol squadron. You claim to be peaceful explorers, but the reputation of your species suggests otherwise. How do you explain the destruction of the Krix battle fleet? The silence from the human ship lasted for several seconds. When Jake Morrison's voice returned, it sounded confused and concerned. Admiral, I am not familiar with any conflict between humans and a species called the Krix. When did this happen? Were any humans injured? Earth's government maintains strict policies about the use of force in space. The genuine surprise in the human captain's voice made Admiral Zexcall pause. Either this Morrison was an excellent actor, or he really had no knowledge of humanity's military encounters with other species. The encounter occurred approximately 8 years ago, Zexcall said carefully. A single human warship disabled an entire Krix fleet without destroying any ships or killing any crew members. That sounds like a defensive action, Jake replied thoughtfully. Earth policy requires our ships to use minimum necessary force to protect themselves, with preservation of life as the highest priority. If a human ship encountered a hostile fleet, those would be exactly the tactics they would use. Chief Science Officer Dr. Coleman's voice joined the conversation again. Admiral, did the human ship attempt to communicate before the battle began? Our first contact protocols require exhaustive attempts at peaceful resolution before any defensive action. Admiral Zexcall realized that he was not dealing with a military threat in the way he had understood military threats before. These humans seemed to approach even armed conflict with the same scientific curiosity they applied to everything else. It was not that they were peaceful in the way the Empire understood peace. They were something entirely different. Captain Morrison, he said slowly, I think we need to arrange a formal meeting. There are many things our species need to discuss. On the Dakota, Jake Morrison smiled for the first time since the alien ships had appeared. We would be honored to meet. With you, Admiral, when and where would be convenient? Neither commander realized that their conversation had already changed the course of galactic history. Within hours, High Admiral Kethmos would be preparing for the most important diplomatic mission the Zephyrian Empire had ever undertaken. High Admiral Kethmos stood on the observation deck of the ZES Sovereign's Will, the most powerful warship in the Zephyrian fleet. Through the transparent metal windows, he could see the human ship Dakota floating peacefully in space, looking tiny next to the massive Imperial dreadnought. The sight should have made him feel confident and secure. Instead, he felt more nervous than he had in decades. Admiral, the human captain is ready for the diplomatic meeting, reported his aide. Commander Jixonal. The neutral station has been prepared according to both sets of safety requirements. Kethmos nodded and straightened his formal diplomatic robes. The meeting would take place on a small automated platform, positioned exactly halfway between the two fleets. Both sides had agreed to this arrangement after 2 days of careful negotiation about meeting protocols. Remind me again what we know about human diplomatic customs, Kethmos said as they walked toward the shuttle bay. Very little, sir, Jixonal admitted. Captain Morrison has been surprisingly helpful in explaining their procedures, but many of their practices seem unusual. For example, they prefer face-to-face meetings rather than holographic conferences. They also seem to expect complete honesty rather than the careful positioning that most species use in negotiations. This information did not make Kethmos feel better. In his experience, species that claimed to value complete honesty were usually the most dangerous to deal with. They either had hidden agendas that they covered with false openness, or they were so powerful that they could afford to reveal their true intentions without fear. 20 minutes later, Kethmos found himself sitting across a small metal table from Captain Jake Morrison. The human looked smaller than he had expected, with pale skin and dark hair that seemed unremarkable compared to the exotic appearances of most galactic species. But his eyes were alert and intelligent, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. High Admiral Kethmos, Jake said with a slight bow of his head. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I hope we can clear up any misunderstandings between our peoples. Captain Morrison, Kethmos replied formally, your presence in our Territory has caused considerable concern. We need to understand your true intentions. Jake leaned forward slightly, his expression serious but not threatening. Admiral, I want to be completely honest with you. Humanity has only had faster-than-light travel for 3 years. We are still learning that the galaxy is inhabited by other intelligent species. Our only intention is peaceful exploration and scientific research? The direct answer surprised Kethmos. Most diplomatic exchanges began with hours of careful verbal dancing around the real issues. Either this human was incredibly naive about galactic politics, or he was operating from a position of such strength that he felt no need for deception. If your intentions are peaceful, Kethmos said carefully, how do you explain the encounters with the hegemony of Krix and the Merchant Confederation of Yildar? Both of those powers suffered significant defeats from contact with human ships. Jake looked genuinely puzzled. Admiral, could you give me more details about these encounters? Earth's records may be incomplete, but I want to understand what happened. For the next hour, Kethmos described the incidents that had made humanity feared throughout the galaxy. As he spoke, he watched Jake's expressions carefully. The human captain showed surprise, concern, and occasionally what looked like embarrassment, but never the satisfaction or pride that Kethmos would have expected from a military leader discussing successful battles. I think I understand the problem, Jake said finally. Admiral, the incidents you described were handled by our defense protocols, not our military forces. When the Krix fleet attacked our ship, the automatic systems responded with minimum necessary force to protect the crew. The goal was to disable the threat without causing unnecessary casualties. And the economic situation with the Yildar Confederation? Jake looked even more uncomfortable. That was probably our trade development teams. When the Confederation cut off trade to our colonies, Earth's policy was to become economically independent as quickly as possible. Our people are very good at solving practical problems, sometimes without considering the broader political effects. Dr. Peter Coleman, who had been quietly taking notes, spoke up. Admiral, may I ask you a question? How long did it take your empire to develop interstellar trade networks? Approximately 2 centuries, Kethmos replied. Humans did it in 2 years, Peter said matter-of-factly. Not because we wanted to damage the Yildar economy, but because that is how we approach problems. We see a challenge, we develop a solution, and we implement it as efficiently as possible. The simple explanation hit Kethmos like a physical blow. The Empire had spent months analyzing human motivations, looking for complex political and military strategies. The reality was much simpler and, in its own way, more frightening. Humans were not trying to conquer or control other species. They were just very good at solving problems, and they solved them without worrying about the political consequences. Captain Morrison, Kethmos said slowly, what does humanity want from the galaxy? Knowledge, Jake replied immediately. We want to learn about other species, other technologies, other ways of thinking about the universe. We want to share what we have learned and benefit from what others have discovered. We want to explore new worlds and understand natural phenomena that we have never seen before. You do not want territory, resources, political influence? Jake shook his head. Earth has everything we need for now. We are more interested in scientific collaboration than territorial expansion. If we wanted resources, it would be easier to mine asteroids than to fight wars for planets. Dr. Coleman nodded enthusiastically. Admiral, your energy systems alone represent decades of research opportunities. The social structures that allow multiple species to work together in a single empire could teach us things about cooperation that we never considered. The scientific possibilities are incredible. Kethmos felt his understanding of the situation shift completely. The Empire had prepared for military conquest, economic warfare, or political manipulation. They had not prepared for a species that approached galactic civilization with the curiosity of scientists and the efficiency of engineers. What would you need to establish formal relations between our peoples? Kethmos asked. Honest communication and mutual respect, Jake replied. We would like to establish cultural exchange programs, scientific collaboration projects, and trade agreements that benefit both sides. We are particularly interested in learning from your experience managing a multi-species government. Over the next 3 hours, they worked out the basic framework for diplomatic relations between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. The agreement was simpler and more straightforward than any treaty Kethmos had negotiated in his career. There were no hidden clauses, no careful ambiguities, no provisions for future territorial disputes. As the meeting ended, Kethmos realized that the Empire's greatest fear had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding. Humans were not dangerous because they were aggressive or deceptive. They were dangerous because they were competent. They approached every problem with scientific curiosity and practical efficiency without the political complications that limited other species. "Captain Morrison," he said as they prepared to return to their ships, "I believe this meeting has been more successful than either of us anticipated." Jake smiled, the first truly relaxed expression Kethmos had seen from him. "I agree, Admiral. I think our species are going to learn a lot from each other." 6 months later, the first joint human Zephyrian research station was established at the edge of Empire space. Dr. Peter Coleman worked alongside Zephyrian scientists to study the stellar phenomena that had brought the two species together. Captain Jake Morrison became Earth's first official ambassador to the Empire, while Admiral Zexcall established the protocols for peaceful contact between human exploration ships and Imperial patrol fleets. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, full of competing powers and ancient conflicts. But in one small region of space, two very different civilizations had found a way to work together, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from understanding.